Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. My slides should just be coming up as everyone is rolling in. Perfect. So we'll just give everyone kind of another minute to come in. We've got a few people. Yes, please, if you'd like, pop a little introduction in the chat, your name, where you're joining us from. I'm in Toronto today. Weather is glorious, beautiful. Was really nice. I just came back. I've been telling my team, I just came back from Gaspésie. I was out on a little road trip there last weekend, and I did a grueling 18-hour drive back home on Sunday, and I am still recovering from it. Like, you think a road trip's easy. You're like, this is fine. We're just driving. We're having a good time. I think there's still parts of my body that are moving at like 130 kilometers an hour. This is like not jet lag, but it's road trip lag. I'm not sure. Anyways, we'll report back at the next time we host a webinar. So, okay, we've got 40 people. Yeah, also pop in the chat, yeah, where you're joining us from, maybe what the weather is like. We drove through some rain on Sunday. It was cold in Toronto yesterday, the usual. We're really excited to be here today to talk about OERs. We're going to wait like 30 seconds more, and then I think we're going to dive in because we've got a lot to cover today. And so everyone that's joining us kind of after that will just hop in whenever. Very nice to see some introductions in the chat. Okay, let's get started. Beautiful weather today and winds are very nice to see. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Deanna. Welcome to our EdTech Sandbox and Open Library webinar on how to adapt and remix OERs using the EdTech Sandbox. We've got a lot to cover today. I'm your host, and let's get into it. So first, we have a few welcome notes. So as everyone has already been doing, you are introducing yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're from, who you are, all that jazz. We should have a Q&A. Ooh, just please a reminder to mute yourself if you don't mind. Thank you so much. So we have a Q&A function. You can use the Q&A function to ask a question. You can also pop any questions in the chat. So we have 2 staff members who are monitoring the chat for my team. And so if you have any questions, we'll try to answer them there as well. You can use the closed captioning button to enable closed captioning. The session is also being recorded. And then in the unlikely event that we experience any sort of unplanned disruption, we'll have to conclude the session immediately, and we'll follow up with you over email. If you also speak French, there is a way to follow along in French using the live AI interpretation through Microsoft Teams. My colleagues will drop some instructions on how to do that in the chat. And with that, we're recording, so we're good to go. Perfect. And we're going to dive right into it. So we're going to start with a land acknowledgement. I'd like to take a quick moment for that. It's really important for us to acknowledge the traditional territories in which we live and work as part of our commitment to decolonization and the TRC calls to action. So I'd like to begin by honoring and acknowledging that the offices of eCampusOntario and where I am joining you from today are located on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. This land is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. I would also like to recognize that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the territory is part of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum, which is a treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee. This agreement represents a commitment to share and protect the land and responsibly care for its resources in harmony. I believe it's important to acknowledge the land, recognizing that I'm a settler who has benefited from it, whether through the hiking and travel that I most recently did, or simply just living and residing here. And so it's essential to honor the value and the sacrifice of the land that I and eCampusOntario continue to benefit from. So here's our agenda today. We're going to start with a brief introduction. We're going to go into the first half. Our lovely librarians will be presenting on adapting and remixing OERs, giving a brief introduction to everything OER, everything you need to know. Then we'll be switching gears to the technologies that can support OER creation, adaptation, and remixing. So we have 3 different technology companies with us that will be doing a very short, brief, fun presentation. And then we move into a little Q&A. But again, as I said before, pop your questions in the chat. We have people monitoring the chat. And so and use the Q&A function. We'll try to answer as we're ongoing to make sure you get the answers you need. So who is with me today? So as you know, I'm at the end. We've got pets on here, by the way. We like pets in this team. So we have Siri and Brett, our two librarians. They will be presenting the OER stuff. So very excited to have them and their expertise. We have Sarah and Isabel manning the chat. So they'll be posting any links that you might need, any information, answering your questions. So if you've got anything, they're out here writing some stuff out. And then of course there's me, the host, who's just here to kind of bookend all this wonderful stuff and tell all you people some wonderful information. So there's our beautiful pets. I don't know everyone's names of their pets, so I won't do that because I can't say anything wrong, but please enjoy the fact that we have our lovely little pets. And the one more thing which I have not said yet, and I apologize, this session is being recorded. The recording will be sent out to everyone afterwards. So please have no fear. You will get access to this if you are only able to attend half of it, et cetera, et cetera. So now about eCampusOntario. As most of you probably know, eCampusOntario is a nonprofit organization funded by the province that leads a group of 58 publicly funded colleges, universities, and Indigenous institutes across Ontario. Our goal is to promote the use of educational technologies in digital learning environments, particularly through our department, Tech and Open Access, where we create safe and risk-free spaces for institutions to experiment with EdTech tools, and then also use and leverage OERs in their classrooms and in their institutions. So about the EdTech Sandbox, if you don't know about us yet, this is my baby right now. This is a curated marketplace of educational technology tools for educators and institutions that will hopefully help make your life a little bit easier. It ranges from tools for teaching and learning to administration tools. There's a link in the chat at some point that you can explore on your own, but it helps you discover technologies, pilot them in short term and explore their pedagogical potential, review their capabilities, and then also adopt by accessing some community support channels, resources, and other product information. And with that, that's all that I'm talking about. So I'm going to turn it over to the lovely librarians, Siri and Brett, to discuss, introduce you to the Open Library, and then dive into the rest of their content. So over to you guys.
Thanks, Deanna. So I'm going to get started. For those of you who are not so familiar with the Open Library, I'm just going to give you a brief introduction. So we have been supporting open education in Ontario since 2017, so wow, almost 10 years now. And to that end, we provide a variety of platforms and services. So probably our best known service is the digital library that we provide to the public. This is a digital library of open educational resources. We also provide open publishing tools for our member institutions, namely Pressbooks and H5P Studio. We deliver programs and training like this workshop, like our Mastering Open Ed course, which actually recognize a few names from Mastering Open Ed, so thanks for joining. We also build community and track the impact of the work we do so that we can share that back to our sector and support advocacy work around open education. And as part of that tracking, we know that we have so far saved students over $38 million. Next slide, please, Deanna. So most of you here, I'm sure, are already familiar with the concept of OER and don't need it defined for you, but just as a refresher, or for anyone who's unfamiliar, there are two sort of conditions that define an open educational resource. The first is its purpose. It's got to be educational, that is for teaching, learning, and research, though not necessarily within the context of a formal educational program or institution. And the next is access and permissions. So, for something to be considered an open educational resource, it has to be either in the public domain or it has to be licensed in a way that allows users to engage in a set of activities that we refer to as the 5 Rs. So that's retaining, reusing, revising, remixing, and redistributing. So very briefly, retaining means the right to make, own, and control copies of the content. So to download the files on your own device and retain those files without that being limited by DRM, for example. To reuse the content in a variety of ways, say in a class, in a study group, on a website, and so on. So I think there's somebody's got their mic on. I'm hearing some background noise. If you wouldn't mind switching that off. Thanks. So revise being the right to adapt, to adjust, to modify or alter the content, say to translate it into another language or create a new edition. And remixing is related. That's the right to combine the original or revised content with other open content to create something new. And finally, the right to redistribute, to share copies of the content or your revisions or remixes with others. So to share with your students, to give a copy to a friend, for example. Next slide, please, Deanna. One of the great advantages of OER is that they can be adapted to fit your needs. Using open educational resources, you can create a customized resource for your course, for your program, for your purposes, without having to start from scratch. You can build upon what other people have done. And there are a lot of reasons you might want to adapt an OER. This is just a short list, but you may want to update content that's updated. There's a lot of great resources out there that are, several years, maybe even decades old, that just need their information to be updated in order to be usable resources. You can also adapt an OER to create something specific to your course or to your program. You can adapt it to be culturally relevant, say adapting an American textbook to better fit a Canadian context, or to indigenize content to better represent Indigenous perspectives, for example. You may want to translate a work into a different language. There's a lot of OER, certainly in a Canadian context, that's only available in English. If you want a resource to be available in French, you have the option of translating that. You can also adapt an OER to make it more accessible or to address diversity concerns. You may find errors in a resource that you want to correct. You have the right to do that with open educational resources. And you can also adapt it to address a particular teaching or learning style, for example, to add interactivity. Next slide, please. This can all seem pretty daunting, but one thing I want you to keep in mind is that you can start small. Adapting an OER doesn't necessarily mean rewriting a whole textbook or reworking an entire course. For example, there's a sliding scale of complexity and effort in OER creation and OER adaptation. And that's kind of represented in this little graph here, where the x-axis is the intended variety of intended uses, and the y-axis is the level of effort involved. At the low end, a lot of OERs are very small. For example, a single simple H5P activity, something like that could be created or adapted maybe even within an afternoon. At the high end, you have something like content for an entire course, whether it's a whole course shell or a whole course textbook. That's a much, much bigger project that could probably take many months and require things like collaboration and funding. But you can start at the low end. You can start simple, especially if you're unfamiliar with the process of adapting OER, and build upon that over time to create something larger. And that brings me to the next slide, please. Which is there are a couple different ways to approach the work of adapting an OER, and two kind of broad mindsets that you might want. I think there's animations on this slide. We'll just need to click. Yeah, there we go. So first is the sprint mindset. And that is just getting it done, getting it out there within a contained time span. Sometimes you just need to get it done. This will help you avoid letting your project get out of scope and get unmanageable, which is something that can very easily happen with a larger project. Instead, focus on just getting it to the point where it can be used. Remember, your students can't benefit from something that they don't have access to. So get it out there. The perfect is the enemy of the good. And this is especially important for building up areas that have lower numbers of available resources. The second approach is the marathon mindset. This is better for larger projects where you want to pace yourself and take a continuous improvement mindset rather than really trying to rush to get something done. This can be built into your entire professional journey. It doesn't have to be a single project. And this approach can help you avoid burnout with larger projects, to live your values every day rather than confining it to a single sort of venture. And keep in mind, these aren't mutually exclusive. You can combine the sprint and marathon mindsets by, as I said, getting the initial work done by starting with something small and manageable, then continuously reflect, refine, build upon that through other small projects over time. All right, so now to get into the nitty-gritty of adapting an OER. 4 kind of main broad steps that you want to take. First, check the licensing. Next, review the materials. Third, identify supports, people and resources that can help you over the process. And fourth, of course, get started on creating and putting that material out there. And I'm going to hand it over to Siri in just a second, but first I want to take a minute to talk about the first step, checking the licensing. Next slide, please. So, there's a lot of stuff on this slide. For those of you who have been through Mastering Open Ed, you'll know that in Mastering Open Ed, I spend pretty much a whole hour just on permissions. So not going to do that today. We do not have the time for that. Instead, what I'm going to do is discuss some broad concepts and then direct you towards a variety of resources that are linked on this slide. So first thing is there are many types of open licenses, but the ones that you'll see most common and the ones that I encourage you to use are Creative Commons licenses. I've included a link on this slide to the description of the Creative Commons license licenses on the Creative Commons website. But broadly, these allow creators to retain their copyright over material. It's not a public domain, but to share certain permissions, allowing others to copy, distribute, and make certain specified uses of their work. And there are a variety of Creative Commons licenses, all of which specify different permissions that are allowed by the terms of that license. If you're planning to adapt OER, it's worth getting to know Creative Commons licenses to make sure that you can kind of read the symbols, understand what they mean, and fully comprehend the permissions attached to the work that you want to adapt. A couple of key considerations here. First is, if you're going to adapt a work, ensure that the license allows for derivative works. If you see the phrase no derivatives, or abbreviated as ND, that means that license does not allow you to adapt or remix that work. Technically, something with a no derivatives license is not really an OER. It doesn't allow for 2 of those 5 Rs, but you will find items with ND licenses in many OER collections, including the Open Library. So that's really something you want to look out for. Second thing to keep in mind is that all Creative Commons licenses require attribution. You need to credit the original work. And that means you need to include some kind of an attribution statement when creating an adaptation. I've got a couple links here on how to build an attribution statement. What that looks like will vary depending on what you're using and what's been done with it. Generally speaking, though, the principle you want to follow is TASL, title, author, source, and license. So I've actually got an example of it on this slide. My little Creative Commons license infographic there is an openly licensed work, and I've included a small attribution statement. So I've got the title there, Creative Commons license spectrum. It's also a hyperlink, so there's the source. I've got the author, Shadim, and used under a CC BY 4.0 license, and that is a Creative Commons attribution license, the broadest of the Creative Commons licenses. Finally, when you create a work of your own, whether it's original or an adaptation, you're going to need to choose a license for it as well. This is going to depend both on the permissions that you want to grant, as well as on the licenses of the materials that you're adapting. So be sure to keep track of the materials that you're using in your adaptation, the licenses of those work, and then use that to identify an applicable overarching license for your adaptation. And I really recommend checking out the link there, Choose a License. That's from the BC Campus OER Adaptation Guide. It includes some really useful information that you're going to want to consider. And I'm going to hand it over to Siri now.
Thank you very much. All right, so to the next slide. So moving on to, I guess, sort of broadly speaking, step 2 of adapting an OER is making sure the materials actually make sense. So just a couple of considerations for evaluating OER content and accessibility broadly. Again, we go into detail about a lot of this in our Mastering Open Ed micro-credential, which you are welcome to register for. Information will be at the very end. I promised I'd make a plug for it, so here we go. I've done it, and look forward to a couple slides from now where you'll have more information. But for now, we'll continue with how to review the materials. So next slide, please. So assuming all licensing is good, we can kind of move on to figuring out whether or not the content is appropriate for whatever your context is. So these are some questions taken from the Evaluating Open Educational Resources handout by BCOEL. It's a great handout. I would encourage you to actually take a look. It's got more questions. It's hyperlinked there on the slides, which you'll have access to. But just a few kind of key questions for evaluating content. Obviously, these will depend on your context, your professional expertise, what it is that you're planning to use. But generally speaking, these are ways to just consider whether or not this is an OER that you'd like to build an adaptation from. So one of the questions is it relevant? That seems pretty straightforward. Does this actually matter for the thing that I'm trying to do? And then finally, is this accurate, right? So just because it's relevant doesn't necessarily mean it's all true, doesn't mean that it's not missing the mark. So as you're going through this journey and evaluating, making sure that you're actually engaging with the content yourself, going through it, again, just evaluating it for relevancy and accuracy. Another question is, what is the production quality? So this might matter a little bit more or a little bit less to you, depending. Maybe you want something that is a little bit more polished, that will require a little bit less work for you, or maybe you have the time to dedicate to fix whatever potential production quality issues there might be. So just something to keep in mind. What are your resources for yourself, and what are to address any potential gaps? The other question is, in what ways is this resource accessible? Accessibility is critical and key, especially in a post-secondary learning environment. So we are about to talk about accessibility in the next slide. So I will kind of cap it a little bit here, but just something to keep in mind as you're going through, making sure that your resource is accessible for your learners. And then we've got that final question of, does this resource encourage interactivity? And this is, again, something that you need to consider whether or not you value in your approach. I would assume most people do want to value interactivity in the classroom, but who knows, there might be an outlier here. But at the end of the day, some of these resources, some of the OER that are available are built along the lines of ensuring that students are engaging as authors and taking ownership of their knowledge. Some of them are really kind of making sure student authorship and ownership are integral to the piece, and whether or not that's something that you want to include in your teaching or your professional context is entirely at your discretion, but it's something that is one of the key benefits of open education. So it's worth evaluating as you're going through the content. So next slide, please. And then finally, accessibility. So a couple things here. These are a lot of hyperlinks that, again, you'll have access to. We've just pulled together some resources that might be of benefit. But generally speaking, here in Ontario, the AODA requires all organizations to comply with and respect the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, which we sometimes just call WCAG, which is a horrifying thing in your mouth to say, but that is the acronym. So it's WCAG, level AA. So I would encourage also, there's a lot of websites and sites available for you to actually determine what does that look like? What does it mean for web content to be accessible? We also have a couple of web resources that we've pulled together, including a digital accessibility webpage, our digital accessibility toolkit, or our actual workshop series on accessibility and OER. So that workshop series was a few summers ago, going through a lot of the various aspects of digital accessibility in relation specifically to openly licensed educational resources. So I would encourage you to check. And again, we want to make sure that the resources are accessible so that students are able to actually, access them in the ways that they are able to and that they want to. And then finally, I just want to remind that accessibility is also more than just format. So please consider things like language and approach for our bilingual or francophone or any other language, or folks who speak in other languages or teach in other languages. Accessibility is also including things like making sure that it's written by and for francophones if you're teaching in French. Yes, you can translate, but you might want to adapt a little bit more heavily in making sure that it's actually responding to the needs of the community that you're teaching or participating in. Approach could also be making sure that there's a low-tech option. So yes, we're going to be talking about technologies pretty briefly, but I also want to, again, remind that not everyone has access to high-speed internet or consistent access to the internet. So just making sure that as you're looking through accessibility, that you're and OER generally, you're considering accessibility as more than just the simple format of whatever the digital resource that you're creating is. All right, so if we can go to the next slide, please. So all of this sounds like a lot, and that's part of it. It can be a lot of work, but to kind of repeat what Brett was saying is that there is a kind of sliding scale of participation. You don't have to do it all at once. It doesn't have to be, all hands in, 100% ready to go right away. This is an iterative process. That's one of the beauties of open education, is that we recognize that things can continue to evolve and should, to make sure that they continually better themselves and that they are the best experiences possible in the moment that they are created. And part of that is also recognizing the supports and the resources that are available to you. So it doesn't have to be exclusively on your shoulders. We're going to talk a little bit about tools, people, and resources that are both internal and external to your institution. So obviously, we're going to talk a little bit more about external things because we don't have a line of sight of necessarily exactly what's going on at your institution, and there's quite a few of you, and we don't have that kind of time. But you're also welcome to send us an email, and we're happy to help out or to point you in the right direction. So going to the next slide. I'm not going to spend the time reading all of this. These slides will be available to you and the recording will be there, so you can pause it right now and read through it. But there's quite a few resources that are available. So we've compiled some here that are for authors or creators. So when you're embarking on the journey of either creation or adaptation or a little bit of both, we'd like to kind of point out the Rebus Guide to Publishing Open Textbooks so far, which is a spectacular resource from the Rebus community. So you'll see here for smaller projects, we've identified some parts, and then for larger projects, we say the whole thing. That's not to say that smaller projects won't also benefit from reading the entire resource. It's very good. Our colleagues at Fanshawe, the OER design studio, have also published a Fanshawe OER development guide for authors. And then the Open Education Network has the OER Publishing Project Toolkit. So feel free to check those out at your leisure. So next slide, please. And then finally, there's also resources for support staff. So this is for when you're supporting OER creation or adaptation, or if you're working as part of a team. There's, again, that OER Publishing Toolkit by the Open Education Network, which is available CC BY. And then back again to that Rebus guide, which is really just, it's great. So again, we've identified which parts might be beneficial for smaller projects and for larger projects. And again, if you're ever looking for support, I would also encourage you to support your local library. As a librarian, I kind of have to say it, but also because it's true. Please check out your institution's library or your Center for Teaching and Learning, or whatever the equivalency at your institution is. There's likely to be folks who are available to help you. And again, you can also send us an email at the Open Library. We're happy to connect you or to point you in the direction of some resources that might be beneficial to your context. But part of this, yes, we're sharing resources that are text-based, that are also OER themselves, but you have folks who will most likely be very happy to be able to help make your educational experience as positive as it can be and as inclusive and accessible as it can be for your learners. So it doesn't have to be only you. It can be a team sport, and in fact, it probably should be, because it means that you've got people in your corner, and you don't have to burn yourself out trying to make things perfect all at once. So all that said, we'll go to the final step. So next slide, which is creating and sharing the adaptation. So publishing platforms, editable formats, and bears. Oh my, we don't actually have bears. I enjoy this as a fun little reference. I wish there were bears. So maybe I should add them. Actually, maybe that'll be, if we ever give this workshop again, I'll hide some bears in our slide deck somewhere, just little ones, and then it'll be that. But anyway. So we do offer some publishing platforms here at the Open Library, as have been previously mentioned. We've got our eCampusOntario H5P Studio, and then we'll also be talking about Pressbooks. So H5P Studio accounts for our Pressbooks Studio are available for free for those of you who are joining as part of our member institutions. So that means that you need to have an email address that is explicitly linked to one of the member institutions, of which we have over 50. So most of Ontario's publicly funded post-secondary. If you work there, if you're a student there, and you have an email address from one of those institutions, you can make an account right now if you wanted to. So with H5P Studio, you can create, adapt, share, and discover interactive learning objects. We've got over 40 content types. You can adapt or reuse any H5P content that's licensed appropriately. You've got things like a user dashboard, and you can collaborate. So you can create stuff with other folks. So I'd encourage you to check it out. There's a new user guide that's linked, and then also exploring H5P content types. Next slide, please. So the other of our publishing tools that we offer is Pressbooks. So you can create or adapt interactive OER that can be easily shared. These are basically web books. So there's multiple export formats supporting interactive and multimedia content. You've got an integration with H5P, Hypothesis, and MathJax. And Pressbooks is a great resource. And again, you're also able to make that account if you are linked to one of our member institutions. That being said, though, it's not only the resources that we offer. We have some technologies that are available in the sandbox that are here to talk to you. So we've kind of laid the groundwork of generally speaking, what you can do prior to starting the creation. And now it's about technologies that can support you. So I think I'm going to pass it back to Deanna, I believe. Yeah. So there we go. Back to you, Deanna.
Thank you. Thank you, Siri and Brett. That was amazing. Every time, I'm still newer to OERs myself, and so in the Open Library and all this stuff, so I learn so much every time I listen to the two of them talk. So if you do have any questions, again, we've popped our email in the chat. We'll do it again at the end. Please reach out. We have a lot of knowledge in our team, a lot of people always here to help. And I know, again, if anyone is newer like me, sometimes it feels like an ocean. And so it's really helpful to have some helping hands, some guides out there that make it feel less insurmountable. And so that being said, we're now going to, we're going to talk about some of our cool technologies. So we have 3 technologies from the sandbox here today. We have TechSmith, Genially, and Affinity Learning. So we're going to go in that order. So we're going to start with Luke from TechSmith, move to Carla from Genially, and then end with Sean from Affinity. So with that, Luke, I'm going to hand it over to you. And I think it's your turn. I think you can just start sharing.
Good deal. Yeah, let's see if I can take that over. Thank you, Deanna.
Amazing.
And should see my screen now.
Yeah, you're looking good.
Thank you very much. So hello, everybody. My name is Luke Haberl. I am from TechSmith. So we are just south of parts of Canada. We're in Michigan, in Lansing area of Michigan. And we create some amazing software that makes it really easy to take those OERs and turn it into content. So when it comes to TechSmith, we've been around 40 years. You might recognize some product names. Camtasia and Snagit are our flagship products. Maybe do some reactions out there if you're familiar. So TechSmith, the way we win is ease of use. So like was mentioned multiple times there, it can be daunting to take that content and turn that, take the OERs, take all of that information that you want to share with your learners and turn it into content. It's challenging, right? And we do our best to make it super easy for you here at TechSmith. So I'm going to do my best to stay on my mark here and stay within my time, but I'm going to show a quick showcase of Camtasia. That's our main product nowadays, Snagit as well, and our new product Audiate. So I'm actually just going to click through these slides. Visuals are important. Here's some statistics up here. We'll share this with the group after. TechSmith did a recent study about why it's important to make visuals rather than reading the full text-based, email or information. Turn it into a video. It's way easier to intake and understand that content and then look back on in the future as well. So TechSmith, again, I mentioned we have Camtasia and Snagit. You see Camtasia's in the middle here, the nucleus. It's our editor. So Camtasia, you can do screen recording and video editing. Snagit's a screen capture, screen recording, and for quick type of communication, take your screen captures, takes also screen recordings as well. Audiate can take your videos and turn that into text, so it'll create captions for you. TechSmith does a great job of making things easy when it comes to making content accessible. So we've got some resources I'll share with Deanna and the group here to send out as to, features within our products that help you to check, is this ADA compliant? Does it, fit the WCAG, I think was mentioned earlier, and all that good stuff. We've got all of the information you need from a security and compliancy standpoint. We're SOC 2 certified. We've got everything in terms of giving your team confidence that TechSmith is a secure and trusted vendor. Just to show you what's on the screen here, we've got assets for the products. There's free assets out there. We have a premium subscription as well. I'm already talking a little too much. I think I'm going to get into the products. So we also have a sharing platform, Screencast Pro. So you see it referenced down here. There's an LMS, SharePoint. We do SCORM, all of that good stuff. I see one question. I'll just answer it now. Yes, Audiate can generate avatars. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and quickly stop sharing my screen, reshare my screen here with Snagit up. So first I'm going to showcase Snagit, and Snagit again is the screen capture, screen recording software. So I'll mention up front again, we have education discounts. So it is, a paid subscription for the software, 1-year subscription, but highly discounted for our education customers. So if you look over here, we've got the Snagit recording. I could take a screen capture of an image. I could scroll and capture the whole web page. It'll identify the text that I capture, and I could edit that as well. I could do a screen recording, but I'm going to show one new feature of Snagit that is called step capture. So I'm actually just going to open up a browser here. This is TechSmith's website. So within Snagit, and if you have Snagit out there today, you should see within the selection option, we've got steps, big new button there. So when I click capture here, it's going to capture each click that I complete through the system here. So let's say I'm making a quick recording on or a document on how to get to TechSmith tutorials. So here we're at techsmith.com. I'll do one click up here. You can't see it on the screen, but it just registered, one click in my bottom right. Then we'll go to let's go to the tutorials here, and we'll do one more click just to show. We'll say we're looking at the Camtasia tutorials. So just that easy. You saw me click. I was just showing a process. Snagit's going to turn that into a step-by-step document, showing my clicks. It's all editable. I can move where my mouse shows up, edit what's shown as your header. So quick way to take a process step-by-step, turn it into a document. So without getting too deep into that, that's just one feature in Snagit. I'm going to jump over to Camtasia. I know I'm going fast, so just want to call out too, as I'm doing this, I would be happy to do a one-on-one demo with you, your team, your organization. So once this is all said and done, reach out to me. I've also just did a webinar on a longer form of this. I can send a recording if that's easier. So Camtasia, we've got the recorder here. You got your project. This is a screen recorder video editor. I'm going to click recording. And what I'm going to show here is just recording myself. I made a fake sample PowerPoint slide here. So it's just opening up my recorder here in Camtasia right now. Actually, just need to turn off my camera for Teams. And you can see here's my recording. I'm just going to go from this spot. Let's say I am taking this PowerPoint that I've had and turning it into an online resource for my students. So click record. You can see it's recording my webcam, my audio, my system audio, all at the same time. You can edit that all independently. I just went with AI and had it create the, I guess it's the slope and y-intercept formula here. I'm not a math teacher, but let's say I'm teaching you all this, and that was a great lesson. We're all better at math now. So I click stop on my recording. It's going to open it up right in Camtasia. So I know, again, I'm going fast, but it's just that easy with TechSmith, Camtasia, and Snagit. You're recording yourself. It's going to open up. You don't have to be a video editing professional to make content with Snagit and Camtasia. So it's just loading here on my other screen. I know I'm running out of time. I think I'll give myself till 12:37 here. Just to give a little headway as to what you're going to see, it's going to open up here in Camtasia Editor. It's just loading on my screen. I can take my video that I just recorded, apply simple edits, but I could also send it to that Audiate platform that was mentioned. Within that, I could translate my video to French. We've got AI voices in Audiate. I could, as I say, more than likely I said uhs or ums while I was recording. One click of a button in Audiate, I can remove all my ums and uhs. The question was asked about an avatar. I can do that as well. So I'll show that super quick here. I'm in Camtasia. This is my recording. Screenshot of me. I click edit and Audiate. It's just going to send my video over to Audiate, turn that into a transcription. So it'll give me closed captions and everything for that. You can see it's just loading here. It's just a moment to load. Here we go. Import it. It was pretty brief video. So Deanna and Isabel, I know I'm just at time here, but 30 more seconds and I'll show this and I'll be good to go. So here, it's got my audio transcribed. If I had ums or uhs, I guess I was a little cleaner here. It would have identified those. I could have clicked one button, delete filler words. It removes my ums and uhs. Send it back to Camtasia, also removes that from the video. I can translate it. I could add audio. We've got 11 Labs as our voice provider. They're awesome if you've ever heard of 11 Labs. We've got avatars. There's more like cartoon style ones. There's real people. And then translate. Of course, we have French. I know that's important for Canada. We've got other languages as well. So that comes with the free, or actually there's some free features that come with Camtasia, but the AI features, you need a paid subscription for Audiate. So I'm 1 minute over, I'll call it there. Thank you very much for bearing with me. My contact information will be sent out though, so please, if you have any interest, if anything sounded interesting there of what you saw, I'll be happy to work with you.
Perfect. Thank you, Luke. And we will turn it over to Carla.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes, awesome. Perfect. Do you see my screen now? Awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Carla. I work with Genially. I'm the marketer for the US and Canada. And today I'm glad to be with you. I'm just going to do a short demo on what Genially is and how you can use it to reuse, adapt different content and make it your own. So for those of you who do not know, Genially is a content creation tool. Our specialty is to make things interactive and fun. With Genially, we have already a lot of pre-designed templates that you can use to make presentations, speech decks, quizzes, videos. So you will have a lot of things to work with. If you already have the content for a presentation that you want to have, you can just insert it in Genially and create a presentation with it. With Genially, you can also have evaluate your students, so you can have a lot of questions and track engagement, how your content is performing. I'm going to show you this little Genially I have here to just show you what Genially is capable of doing. So the whole idea is that you can make your presentations interactive and fun. The idea is for your students to be able to explore at their own pace, making it accessible. You know how some students learn better with maybe visuals or with audio. So you can insert audio, you can have the videos embedded in them. Everything that you can embed with a iframe code, you can have on Genially. And the idea is that with Genially, you can also gamify your experiences. So a lot of people do escape rooms, they do games. You can embed Google Maps like you see right here, have different images and carousel so that you can show a topic in different ways. We have a lot of different questions, sort of questions where you can order them or true or false. We have polls, short answer that then you can evaluate your students with later on, as well as effects just to help you create those like gamified experiences. And what's awesome is, as I said, you can create presentations, videos, all sorts of different things that we have already created for you as templates from our design team. But we also have a really big community of 45 million people in 190 different countries. This means that all these people are sharing content that you can reuse as well. So if you want to teach history or languages, you can look for that type of content, see if there's some teacher that had already created a presentation that you want to maybe adapt or remix, and start using it. Genially is great because it helps increase motivation and active student participation. People are able to explore presentations instead of just clicking next on the next slide. You can explore content at your own pace and actually have to read the content on each slide. Genially is also great for languages where you can enhance your vocabulary, grammar, and the attitudes towards learning a foreign language. I'm going to show you really quick what it looks like. So Genially is free to use. You can just go to genially.com, sign up for a free account, and this is what you're going to see when you log in. This is going to be your screen, and you're going to see in the left side right here, there's two tabs. One is called Templates and Community. There's different ways to start Genially. You can start from a blank canvas. If you have maybe a PowerPoint or you have a Google Slides that you want to work with, you can also import the file from a different tool. And then you can also start with a template of something that we have already designed for you. So let's say you want to do a presentation and you are in the university level. So you can maybe choose one of these templates, start with it, and make it your own. But here we also have another tab, which is the community tab, where all our instructional designers, people who create with Genially, are creating on. And for example, you can search for different templates that people have created. This one, for example, is about medical emergencies. What should you do? So you can, check out the template. I don't know if you hear, but there's like some audio in this one. This has a voiceover. So it's a great way to also engage your students in different ways through different senses. This one, as soon as the audio ends, then you will see the next slide button so that you can continue with the presentation. And if you like it and you want to use it, you can just go to use a template and then you'll be able to edit it. You can also search, by different topics. So if you want to do, let's say, language, you can look for templates or things that other people have already done and see if it fits your needs or if you want to adapt it to your specific classroom goals. For example, right, this one has some of the verbs if you are doing like language teaching. And once you're ready, you can just go to use template. I'm just going to quickly show you what it looks like. For example, I have this template from the Roman Empire. Someone created I think in Italy. And then you can just see that there's different hotspots in this one. How this one looks is it's a image where you click on different elements and you see they have different information and images of what this country or the architecture. So what you can do if you need to modify something is you click on it, you go to the window, and you can edit anything that it's right here. What I would recommend is using templates, for example, the ones that we have created. This is the other template I show you. You can click here and add interactivity, but you can also make sure that it's accessible. So you want to go to accessibility by clicking the right click, and then you can determine what type of text this is. So this is a title. You want to make it one so that the screen reader will later read it in order and all of your content is accessible. I just wanted to show you that quick demo. I know it's a lot of information and I went really fast, but if you have any questions, I'll leave my email in the chat so that you can ask away. But yeah, I invite you to explore our community tab where there's a lot of different content in science, English that you can definitely use. And yes, you can embed to any LMS. We have LTI connections and SCORM packages, so you can have dynamic SCORM and have everything updated live. This is web-based, so you can just do everything online and it's free. So I invite you to go ahead and try it out. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carla. I think there's a few questions in the chat, so I'll just invite you to answer those, and I will turn it over to Sean from Affinity Learning. Sean, where are you at?
I'm here. Thanks, Deanna.
Perfect.
Thanks, eCampus, for organizing. And let me see if I can share my screen here. Okay, success.
There we go.
Phew.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks everyone for the opportunity. My name's Sean. I'm CEO founder at Affinity Learning. We are an Ontario-based software company, and today I'm going to bring you through just a little bit of background on our platform and then how Affinity fits in with using and creating OERs. So for those of you who are just hearing about Affinity for the first time, Affinity is built for educators, allowing them to create meaningful online learning experiences. And it's a toolkit that's really focused on real world skills development. And so that means things like simulations, decision-making scenarios, practicing communication skills. These are the kind of the areas that Affinity is built to allow students to practice. And so the way that we do this is through this building blocks approach. So you'll see on the right-hand side, these are all of the building blocks that an educator has access to when building content in Affinity. A lot of these are probably familiar. So we have like media types, images, text, video, audio at the top. And then we have interactive components. And this is where Affinity is really powerful. Each of these is a different type of interaction with its own settings and its own superpowers. So for example, this one that's highlighted very briefly is text response. So allowing students to give a response in long form text and get feedback on it. Voice conversation allows you to simulate two-way voice conversation, a conversation with a simulated AI avatar. Voice response allows you to respond with voice. So lots of different modalities to allow your learners to engage with your content that feel serious and feel really real, like they have real consequences. So these building blocks, this is what it looks like to actually use them. So you choose the one you want. You see the editor that has to do with that particular content type. So if I select an interactive image, the editor is going to look different than if I'm creating an AI interaction, for example. So this is kind of what that looks like. The screens are drag and drop, and everything kind of locks into place depending on what you want to add, what you're adding to the screen. And it really just depends on what your learning objectives are, who your learners are, and what you're trying to teach. That will depend kind of to control which building blocks you use. And so those screens that you just saw come together to create full learning journeys, and they can look like this, completely linear top to bottom. They can also look branched like this one, where there's multiple learning pathways that you can go down based on the decisions that the learner's making, things they did, things they didn't do. And this is sort of the shape that they can take on. And these examples I'm showing are actually from our OER library, which I'll show in a moment, but that's where these are actually, these are coming from. So these are real examples that are published as OERs. And then this is what it looks like to the learner. They kind of go through, they interact with the different media and interactivity that you as the educator have added to your learning journey. They make different decisions, they do different actions, and that kind of controls where they go in the given learning experience. And this is just an example of one of the AI interactions, so long form text with feedback. And okay, so to bring it back into the relevant piece, Affinity Community is an open library of freely accessible learning experiences. Most of these are published by Canadian institutions, many published during COVID and afterwards. And actually, I think I'm going to switch over to a live demo. So if I go over to Affinity here, so this is the community library. It's publicly accessible. You don't need an account to go in or even to use these OERs as a learner. These are all organized by profession. Because our roots are sort of in healthcare and human services, you'll see that the domains represented here are kind of within that overall umbrella, but really anything where you want learners to practice communication, decision making, any kind of real world skills, Affinity is a good fit. And you'll see that there's a kind of logo attached to many of these you can see that some of them have multiple contributors. These are like the publishing institution that funded or organized the creation of the resource. If I click on one of these, I can go in to get more information about it and who created it, what are the learning objectives, and I can just click one button to get in and actually use this OER. So you can like share this link with your learners. You could post it in an LMS or anywhere else that you communicate with learners, and they don't need to create an account. Our focus with this library was to make it really easy for people to access these resources. And so all of this is sort of public facing. Hopefully I can share this in the chat, or maybe Deanna can to save me. You'll see that there's a little plus icon that shows up when I hover over some of these or any of these. And if I click on these, I can actually clone it into my library. So because these all have the same uniform CC by BYSA, so that's attribution share alike, they can all be modified and used for any purpose. It's the same license that's used everywhere throughout the library. So you don't have to worry about kind of looking at each one and seeing what the license is. They're all clonable. That part you do have to create an account for so that you can author, but you can create a free account if you want to do that. And then that's like an editable copy that you can go in and change for your change to fit your specific learning objectives, your learner level. Maybe you just want to take the video and do something different, remix it. You can do that with the little plus icon there to clone. So just to make mention of that, because that's a really powerful feature of the library, is allowing people to make their own versions of these. And the quality of these, I'll just say, is like really high, the videos in here. So I don't know if anyone here is from a healthcare human services background, but if you are, these are very relevant to you. If you're not, they may also be inspiring to create something similar for your specific domain. And let's see. And thank you. Good thing I had a slide for that. So I'll pass it back over to you, Deanna.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Sean. Very much appreciate it. And I've shared the community link in the chat. So if anyone wants to give that a look, they can. Now let me represent my slide. Let's see if it goes to the right slide. It does not. That's fine. We're going to get there in about 3 seconds. I think this should be the right slide. Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for attending this webinar. So we have what's next? Great question. We'd love to tell you. First of all, start adapting, remixing, adopting resources, and tell us about it. We have a link where we track the adoptions that people are using. And so if you're using open educational resources, we would love to know. That is really helpful to our entire team. We love creating these things. We love supporting the creation, and we help create them. We help put stuff out. We hold the open library, so that we can use all of these things and share that with everyone. If you want to learn more, let's just say this was your first brush with open education. You want to go deeper, please attend our Mastering Open Ed. or the same course in French. We do offer it in French. The next cohort's in September, so you can register now. We'll pop the link in the chat for registration. We also have a fun survey, so thanks for attending. The survey will go in the chat and will come in the follow-up email. Please fill in the survey, tell us what you liked, tell us what you didn't like, tell us what you want to learn more about. We're here as a resource. We have so much incredible knowledge on the team. Siri, Sarah, and Brett know so much about OERs. Again, I am still learning, and I learn so much more every single time they speak. And so we'd love to host more of these so we can continue sharing our knowledge with the community and creating spaces for people to talk about these things. So tell us what you want to hear so we can put together some fun webinars and get you in a room with a lot of other fun, cool people to talk about this a little bit more. And email us if you have any questions. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I do want to make sure, I know it is lunchtime. I do want to just draw the attention to the Q&A. So there have been some questions in the Q&A. They have been answered. There was a question around how do you create OER from Indigenous perspective? And so Siri has answered that both in the Q&A and in the chat. And again, if you missed reading that and you want us to send it to you later, just feel free to send us email. In the meantime, I will stop talking for about 3 seconds and see if anyone else has a question. You can unmute and say things if you'd like. Okay, that was my 3 seconds. I'm going to let everyone go now. So thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. We are looking forward to continue the conversation. So email us, text us, call us, call me, beat me if you want to reach me, whatever it is that Kim Possible says. Thank you so much for attending, and have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. We'll send out everything else, and hopefully we'll see you again. I'm ending it.